So what happens to a society when the music stops? What happens to a society that has become so heavily dependent on government support for living that, well, losing that has dramatic implications? We're going to get into this today in part two of our discussion on the massive amount of federal debt. And a very good morning to you. If you're not subscribed, I'm really delighted by the feedback and the response on some of these philosophical, sociological, economic, psychological videos here recently that I've been putting up. And yesterday I spoke of just pointing out the massive amount of debt and the trajectory that debt is on, that parabolic curve that makes it impossible to even contemplate how to deal with that. So once again, if you're not subscribed, subscribe and hit that bell for all notifications so you can be a part of it here. And I've got great questions came in to be answered in the future. But today we want to get more into what to expect when this happens. Now, a lot of people have said, well, it's been great the last, everything's been good since 2008, the crash of 2008. The property crash, and to a large extent that is. And one of the strange things that's happened in history, particularly since the 1930s when federal borrowing really kicked in, and then post World War II, and then it was almost on steroids in the 60s with Johnson's Great Societies. You get a program, you get a program, you get a program. What's actually happened is the recessions or downturns in the United States have become less, they've come about less often, and they've been shallower than ones in the past. And some people have said, well, why would that be? Well, why haven't we had a real good cleansing of the economy to get out the deadwood? Well, that's the thing about massive borrowing in place of tax revenue. You have a certain amount of money you want to spend on the part of the government. You're short money, so you have to go borrow money. And that borrowed money has a tremendously stimulative effect. And John Maynard Keynes, the famous British economist, was the first to really identify the idea of deficit spending as a way to stimulate the economy in the Great Depression. And Roosevelt took to that, and it came some way to helping us out of the Great Depression, but it certainly wasn't a cure-all, because there's a very long lead time till that spending is effective and things are in place to do that. In the meantime, though, people have jobs, but you have that shortfall between revenues and spending. And when you're borrowing, you're really overstimulating an economy that really is basically saying, with the money we have, we can't afford to do the things that people expect us to do. Okay, we're short of money, so what is the choice? We'll just borrow it. And therefore, we're spending much more money, to the tune of sometimes up to $2 trillion of deficit, of money we don't have, that's going on to the debt pile. And as I said, when you're spending that money that you've not earned, you've borrowed it. Remember, you've borrowed it. It can have a tremendously stimulative effect. It's like you maxing out your credit card, buying a new big screen TV, a huge down payment on the car, nice stereo setups, and trips, cruises, love boat, the whole deal. You can really live it up. And that's what the United States economy has been doing. But now it's come to the point that support is spread so thin now, and so many people have grown to need that type of support, that it's almost a catastrophic thing to think about when the music stops and there's not enough chairs for people to sit down, and, well, something's got to give, something's got to give, something that's got to give. That's the thing about deficit spending, is it's great until it starts to impinge on your ability to borrow. When the bank comes to you and says, we think we're going to take your credit card back and cut it up, and that's the end of it. Now we'll just stand by while you pay. Pay? How the hell am I going to pay that, right? I'm going to go bankrupt and all that. And that's the situation that we're looking at now with this parabolic rise in federal debt. We're coming to a point now where it's not so easy to exercise that credit card anymore. We start to get a little friction here. Interest rates starts to rise from 2020 from 0.7% to 1% to 2% to 3% to 4% to 5% on the 10-year. In the meantime, the whole 40 years that interest rates have been declining since 1980, we've been spending and borrowing like crazy and building up the reach of the United States government till it's in everything from student loans to Medicare to Medicaid, unemployment insurance, backstops, the list, housing, education, and the list just goes on. And we've built up a whole infrastructure that administers that, and we've built up a huge number of huge percent of the population that's absolutely dependent on that government check coming in to sustain their life or supplement their way of life. So what happens when that credit card starts to be impinged? Well, as I said before, when you're borrowing on the long term, you're in an international market, right? People don't have to buy your debt in the United States. People from Japan, China, other nations, even people within the United States can just turn their backs and say, no, I think I'm going to stick with Japanese debt. I'll get a little lower yield, but I don't have to worry about the credit card being cut up. So naturally that puts upward pressure on interest rates. When people start to say, well, stay away, because they get the idea in their head that I'm looking at this parabolic rise in debt and I'm wondering if I'm ever going to get my money back. You know, I might get my money back, but the spending power won't be there, right? So that puts further upward pressure on interest rates, because rates have to keep going higher to attract people to come to the auctions and gobble down these huge hundreds of billions of dollars of debt and put it into their portfolio. No doubt much of it is in your 401k portfolios with government bonds and things of that nature. Okay, so everybody's really got a piece of the pie in that. Okay, so it's important that we understand this. Well, some people are starting to shy away from that and move away from government debt because it is a competitive market. And the president can talk it all he wants, but you can't force interest rates down. Now, think about this. For the last 5 months, 6 months, the report on interest rates has been good, right? You know, the CPI, the Producer Price Index, what is it? You call that? I don't know. But anyway, you can see that it's moderated quite a bit, and interest rates have continued to go up. Now, why would that happen? In the face of inflationary pressures that are declining. Well, because markets look ahead, and they're putting 2 plus 2 together and they're getting 4, and they're not liking what they're seeing there. So the friction starts to build, and it becomes hotter and more problematic. And you see the Treasury Secretary, the old one, Janet Yellen, we're going to have to pull a few strings to be able to negotiate the debt ceiling this time. And, we have to do some finagling. Finagling, right? That's the last one. Finagling. I would have been fired in Hong Kong, right? In China, my Royal Bank of Canada boss, if I had tell him I got to finagle a few things too. Right? Finagle, get the hell out of here. Clean out your desk. Go, we'll send your 3 months severance, and get the hell out of here, right? Don't hang around for lunch, right? So what happens? So you can eat. You have multiple. You have a few choices: door A, door B, door C. Door A says, well, it's time to take the pain, bite the rubber biscuit, right? We have to absolutely cut spending, right? Okay, we absolutely have to cut spending to match the revenues that are coming in. And I'll tell you, as much as deficit spending is stimulative to the economy as it's been for the last 20 or 30 years, right? The opposite is true when it comes to cutting spending. It has a tremendously depressive effect because it's money that's not being spent. It's matching, once again, the true ability of the economy to properly consume. Okay? You wonder why your prices are going up and inflation and stuff, because the deficit spending is allowing overconsumption out of balance with the productivity and tax revenues of society. So when you start to match that down to what society's actually doing in the way of producing revenues, it's a pretty frightening scenario to knock off, half a trillion here, $1 trillion there, $2 trillion there. That's a daunting prospect. Door letter B is, well, we're just going to start to raise taxes, okay, on the wealth. And we always have this idea, we'll tax the wealthy, but the wealthy pay the overwhelming bulk of taxes in the United States as it is. And a lot of wealthy people have the ability to just say, sayonara, see you later. You can't chain people to a country, and they have the ability to move their wealth elsewhere and vote with their feet. Okay, so that's the fallacy of that. Plus, the people that are wealthy, many of them, of course, a good measure of them have inherited wealth and things like that, but a good measure of them have created innovations that you enjoy every day and have gotten rich because of that, like Uber Eats, right? So you can have your food brought into your house, right? Somebody had to come up with that idea, and they're making a lot of money, right? They're worth a lot of money. Oh, I like shop at home, right? This convenience of Amazon and this cheap crap I get from Temu and Shine. Oh, I love this stuff, right? You get the point of what I'm saying here, right? So I'm saying raising, the other thing is raising taxes won't be felt by the rich. I guarantee you, it'll be felt by the middle class and the working classes, those that can least afford to pay. But the government comes to them and says, look at our credit card. What are we supposed to do? Right? What are we supposed to do? Right? Well, you shouldn't have tried to cushion and feather bed us all the last 40 years with this cushion of government support and spending. Now you've left us all twisting in the wind because we're facing cuts, and our Social Security could be cut, our Medicare benefits can be cut, Medicaid, right? Unemployment insurance and housing. What am I going to do for housing? You can imagine. Okay. Now remember, things shouldn't have ever gotten that way to begin with, because all you're doing as a working person, you're competing with the government's ability to purchase housing, food, medical care, things for other people, a good measure of which aren't even here legally. And that was a big part of what got President Trump elected this time around. This is not a political rant, because I'm a very down the middle kind of person, but reality is reality. Then comes the point of social protest. We have what I call a very brittle society now. Back in the 1930s, when the Great Depression is, people could bend like a willow branch, right? A nice green willow branch. You could just bend it and almost tie a knot of it, and people just survived, right? Soup kitchens and, knocking on back doors. Hey, can I get something to eat to do a little work? Somehow people survived, right? Right? They were a lot more flexible and had a lot more ability to sustain hard times. Now we're in a very brittle society that the minute that things get cut, depending on whose ox is being gored, we have this tremendous backlash that develops that it's not fair, and I shouldn't have to pay the price for this. I need this. You can't cut me off. I deserve this, blah, blah, blah. Well, you see, one of the other problems of instituting these programs is that they're economically they're economically unfeasible in a society and a population that's reducing in size and has so many structural disorders to it that it can't possibly sustain these type of programs over the long haul. Plus, this thing called the middle class is just a transient phenomena that passes away over time. So these programs were bound to fail sooner or later, and now they're reaching the points of fail. This is where we get into the idea of social disruptions and protest, and we've certainly seen protests on a massive scale in January 6th of 2021, and also earlier in December in the governors at the legislature in Lansing, Michigan, and things like that. People can be rallied to hit the streets, the George Floyd riots like that. And you have this built-up societal pressure, especially among Gen Z, and also for millennials that are like, man, we are not getting our piece of the pie. I'm working hard here at Starbucks, pulling coffee with my master's degree in French literature. This society sucks. It doesn't reward geniuses like me, right? And as soon as they hear protest and we're going to do this, we're going to march for this or march for that, well, there, my friends, is your preview of coming attractions. And we'll see just how brittle society is when the government, for the first time since 1933, early 1933, says, sorry, we can't do it anymore. We don't got it. Yo, you're on your own. Well, I think in a future video, I'm very hesitant to tear into beyond that, although I have a damn good idea of what's going to happen on the streets and what's going to happen when it comes to government and things like that, I dare not go there right now at this point in time, because that's not the purview of this particular video. But suffice to say, there's nothing engraved in stone that says democracies are long-lasting in the world. And just like in the 1930s, after all the strife of Germany effectively losing World War I and getting hit with tremendous reparations and sinking down into a mire of despair and economic collapse, out of that often arises a strong man that says, hey man, give me the bit, I'll take it in my mouth, and we'll get going. Well, does history repeat itself? I leave that for you to say, right? Economics, you might as well understand it, is the biggest driver of economic change that there is throughout the history of the world. Them that's gots want to keep it, them that ain't gots want to get it. And that, my friend, is life in a nutshell in Western civilization, and probably since time immemorial through all civilized and uncivilized nations. Well, I really hope that you've enjoyed this talk this morning. If you have enjoyed it, please share it out with others. Make other people aware. Get other people aware and get them thinking a little bit, right? Pull away from the TV and the internet for a little bit and think about what's coming down the line so you don't get clubbed like a baby harp seal on the ice, all right? It ain't a pretty sight. So make sure that you like and subscribe, and also share this out on your social media. And I want to thank you for listening, and I will see you guys on the next one. And your thumbs up and your comments down below are very appreciated. Have a wonderful rest of your day.